Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my other socials for more. Enjoy. The soft glow of the bathroom mirror illuminated the transformation taking place. Delicate fingers traced the contours of a freshly shaved face, applying foundation with practiced precision. The weekend stretched ahead, filled with possibility and freedom. A sigh of contentment escaped as the final touches of mascara were applied. The reflection staring back was a vision of femininity, carefully sculpted brows, smoky eyeshadow, and lips painted a bold crimson. It was a stark contrast to the masculine facade typically worn. Stepping back to admire the full effect, manicured toes wiggled against the cool tile floor. The silky robe cascaded over curves enhanced by carefully placed padding. For James, these precious moments of authenticity were a lifeline. With Melanie away visiting her sister, the house felt both empty and full of potential. No need to hide, to pretend, to be anyone but herself. James savored the rare gift of time and privacy. Humming softly, she made her way to the bedroom. Laid out on the bed was an outfit selected with great care. A little black dress that hugged in all the right places, sheer stockings and gleaming patent leather heels. The final touch was a honey blonde wig styled in loose waves. As she slipped on each garment, James felt a sense of rightness settle over her. The physical transformation was complete, but the mental shift had already taken place the moment Melanie's car turned the corner. This was more than playing dress-up. This was coming home to herself. Fully dressed, she took a moment to admire her reflection. The woman staring back exuded confidence and poise. With a wink and a blown kiss to the mirror, she grabbed her purse and car keys. The night was young and full of possibilities. The drive into the city passed in a blur of anticipation, finally settling on a sleek cocktail bar downtown. As she pulled into a parking spot a block away, butterflies danced in her stomach. It had been months since she'd ventured out dressed as her true self. Taking a deep breath, she stepped out of the car. The click of heels against pavement was both thrilling and nerve-wracking. Head held high, she strode towards the bar's entrance. A small queue had formed outside, and she took her place at the end. "Love your dress, honey!" The compliment came from the woman in front of her, a statuesque beauty with close-cropped hair and bold makeup. James felt warmth spread through her chest. "Thank you. I adore your eyeshadow. The color is stunning." Just like that, the ice was broken. By the time they reached the front of the line, James had made fast friends with Trish and her girlfriend, Danny. The trio breezed past the bouncer, the thumping bass drawing them in. Inside, the bar was a sensory explosion. Neon lights pulsed in time with the music, the air thick with the mingled scents of perfume and cologne. Bodies moved on the dance floor, a sea of self-expression and joy. "First round's on me, ladies!" Trish shouted over the music, leading the way to the bar. James perched on a stool, crossing her legs demurely. The bartender, a handsome man with an undercut and sleeve tattoos, flashed a winning smile. "What can I get for you beautiful people tonight?" "I'll have a Cosmo," James replied, her voice pitched slightly higher than usual. As the night progressed, inhibitions melted away. James found herself on the dance floor, moving in ways she never dared in her day-to-day life. The music pulsed through her, and for once she felt truly free. Hours slipped by in a haze of laughter, dancing, and fruity cocktails. It was nearing last call when James finally glanced at her phone, shocked to see it was nearly 2 a.m. "I should probably head out," she told her new friends, a hint of regret in her voice. "It's been absolutely amazing meeting you both." Hugs were exchanged, along with promises to keep in touch. James made her way out of the bar, the cool night air a refreshing change from the heated interior. The walk back to her car was uneventful, though she kept alert, always mindful of potential dangers. As she slid behind the wheel, a feeling of triumph washed over her. She'd done it, ventured out, made friends, and most importantly, been true to herself. The city streets were quiet as James began the drive home. Her mind replayed moments from the evening, the easy camaraderie with Trish and Danny, the freedom of the dance floor, the simple joy of existing as her authentic self. Lost in thought, she almost missed the sputtering sound coming from the engine. The truck lurched and James frowned, guiding it towards the shoulder of the road. Just as she came to a stop, the engine died completely. "No, no, no," she muttered, turning the key in the ignition. Nothing, not even a click. Heart racing, James tried to remain calm. She reached for her phone, intending to call for roadside assistance. Before she could dial, a sickening crunch of metal on metal filled the air. The impact threw her forward, the seatbelt digging painfully into her chest. Dazed, James looked in the rearview mirror. Another vehicle had plowed into the back of her truck, its front end crumpled like an accordion. Panic set in as she realized the implications. She was dressed in full feminine attire, alone on a dark road, about to interact with strangers. Taking a deep breath, she steeled herself and opened the door. The driver of the other car, a middle-aged man in a rumpled suit, was already out and surveying the damage. "Are you all right?" James called out, her voice shaky. The man looked up, his expression a mix of confusion and concern. "Yeah, I'm okay. I'm so sorry. I didn't see you stopped there. Are you hurt?" Before James could respond, the wail of sirens cut through the night. Red and blue lights flooded the area as a police cruiser pulled up behind them. 2 officers emerged, flashlights sweeping over the scene. "Everyone okay here?" the taller of the 2 asked, approaching cautiously. James nodded, trying to keep her voice steady. "Yes, officer. I'm fine, just a bit shaken up." The officer's gaze lingered on James for a moment, taking in the dress, the wig, the carefully applied makeup. To his credit, his expression remained neutral. "Can I see your license and registration, please?" Heart pounding, James retrieved the documents from her purse. She held her breath as the officer examined them, certain this was the moment everything would fall apart. To her surprise, the officer simply nodded and handed them back. "All right, ma'am. We'll need you both to give statements about what happened. Are you able to do that now, or do you need medical attention?" The rest of the interaction passed in a blur. James provided her account of the incident, watching nervously as the officers conferred with each other. She braced herself for questions, for suspicion, for the worst. But it never came. The officers were professional and courteous throughout. They arranged for tow trucks for both vehicles and even offered James a ride home, which she politely declined in favor of calling a rideshare. As she waited for her ride, the adrenaline began to wear off. The reality of the situation hit her. She'd been in an accident, interacted with law enforcement, all while presenting as a woman. And nothing terrible had happened. The rideshare arrived, and James sank into the back seat with a mix of exhaustion and relief. As they drove through the quiet streets, she reflected on the night's events. What had started as an evening of self-expression and freedom had turned into a stark reminder of the challenges and risks she faced. Arriving home, James kicked off her heels and made her way to the bathroom. She stared at her reflection, makeup smudged, wig slightly askew, but still unmistakably feminine. Slowly, she began the process of removing her carefully constructed image. As she wiped away the last traces of lipstick, James couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. She'd faced an unexpected crisis and come through it intact. The fear and anxiety were real, but so was the strength she'd found within herself. Crawling into bed, James made a mental note to be better prepared in the future. A change of clothes in the car, perhaps, or a more comprehensive emergency kit. The world wasn't always kind to people like her, but that didn't mean she had to live in fear. As she drifted off to sleep, James felt a renewed sense of determination. Tonight had been a reminder of both the joys and the risks of living authentically, but it had also shown her that she was capable of handling whatever life threw her way. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the curtains, rousing James from a fitful sleep. For a moment, the events of the previous night felt like a distant dream. but the ache in her chest from the seatbelt and the faint smell of perfume lingering on her skin served as vivid reminders. Stretching, James padded to the kitchen to start a pot of coffee. As the rich aroma filled the air, she leaned against the counter, lost in thought. The night had been a roller coaster of emotions. Exhilaration, fear, relief, and finally, a strange sense of empowerment. With coffee in hand, James settled at the kitchen table and opened her laptop. She had some research to do. First on the agenda, finding a reliable mechanic to assess the damage to her truck. As she scrolled through reviews, she couldn't help but wonder how different the interaction might be if she showed up as James, rather than the woman she'd been last night. Next, she began looking into support groups and resources for individuals like herself. While she'd always been private about this aspect of her life, last night's events had shown her the value of community and preparation. As the morning wore on, James found herself creating a detailed plan. She ordered a small emergency kit to keep in her vehicle, complete with a change of gender-neutral clothes. Around midday, James's phone buzzed with a text from Melanie. "Hope you're enjoying your quiet weekend. Miss you." A pang of guilt hit James as he typed out a reply. He loved Melanie deeply, but the weight of his secret felt heavier than ever. One day, he hoped to find the courage to share this part of himself with her. For now, though, he simply responded with, "Miss you too. Can't wait for you to come home." The rest of the weekend passed in a blur of practical tasks and deep reflection. James arranged for the truck to be towed to a shop, fielded calls from the insurance company, and even reached out to Trish and Danny to thank them for a wonderful evening. By Sunday evening, as he prepared for Melanie's return, James felt a shift within himself. The fear and shame that had long accompanied his feminine expression had been tempered by a newfound resilience. He'd faced a worst-case scenario and come out the other side stronger. As he heard Melanie's key in the lock, James took a deep breath. One day, he promised himself, he would find the words to share his whole self with her. For now, though, he greeted her with a warm embrace, genuinely happy to have her home. "Did you have a good time with your sister?" he asked, helping her with her bags. Melanie launched into a detailed account of her weekend, and James listened attentively. Yet part of him couldn't help but think of the stories he longed to share. Of dancing under neon lights, of unexpected kindness from strangers, of finding strength he never knew he possessed. As they settled into their usual Sunday night routine, James felt a renewed appreciation for the life they'd built together. He also felt a quiet determination to continue exploring and embracing all facets of himself. The journey wouldn't be easy, but he was no longer afraid to face whatever challenges lay ahead. That night, as James drifted off to sleep with Melanie's familiar warmth beside him, he felt a sense of peace. The woman he'd been that Friday night wasn't a separate entity to be hidden away. She was a vital part of who he was, strong, resilient, and worthy of love and acceptance. The weeks that followed brought their own challenges and revelations. James threw himself into research, quietly building a network of resources and support. He joined online forums, cautiously at first, then with growing confidence as he found others who shared similar experiences. The truck repair became an unexpected opportunity for growth. James made the decision to handle the interactions with the mechanic and insurance company as himself, not the woman he'd been the night of the accident. Each phone call and in-person meeting was an exercise in courage, a reminder that he was capable of navigating the world in multiple ways. At home, James found himself paying closer attention to Melanie, wondering how she might react if she knew the full truth. He noticed the way her eyes lingered on a floral dress in a shop window, the gentle way she spoke about her co-worker's recent coming-out experience. These moments gave him hope, even as fear held him back from full disclosure. One lazy Saturday afternoon, as they lounged on the couch watching a movie, Melanie turned to James with a thoughtful expression. "You know, I've been thinking," she began, her voice soft. "We've been together for so long, but Sometimes I feel like there's still so much to learn about each other. Is there anything you've ever wanted to tell me, but weren't sure how?" James felt his heart race, a mix of panic and longing surging through him. For a moment, he considered laying it all out. The hidden clothes, the nights spent transforming himself, the accident and its aftermath. But the words caught in his throat. Instead, he squeezed her hand and said, "I love you, you know that, and I'm so grateful for the life we have together." It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. Melanie smiled, seemingly satisfied with the response. "I love you too," she replied, snuggling closer. As the movie played on, James's mind whirled. He knew that one day the whole truth would need to come out. But for now, he was still learning to fully accept himself. How could he ask Melanie to accept a part of him he was still coming to terms with? In the months that followed, James continued his careful balancing act. He threw himself into work during the day, earning praise from his bosses and considering a long overdue promotion. In the evenings and on weekends, he divided his time between his life with Melanie and his growing involvement in the trans community. He volunteered at a local support center, always careful to maintain his privacy while offering help to others. These experiences opened his eyes to the diverse spectrum of gender expression and identity. He met people who lived openly as their authentic selves, as well as those who, like him, carefully compartmentalized different aspects of their lives. Through it all, the memory of that night, the exhilaration of the bar, the terror of the accident, the unexpected kindness of the police officers, served as both a reminder of the risks and a testament to his own strength. As autumn turned to winter, James found himself standing in front of the mirror once again, carefully applying makeup. Melanie was away for a work conference, giving him the freedom to fully embrace his feminine side. But this time felt different. There was a new confidence in his movements, a sense of self-assurance that hadn't been there before. Dressed in a sweater dress and boots, a brunette wig framing his face, James headed out. But instead of a bar, his destination was a small coffee shop that hosted a support group for gender non-conforming individuals. It was a step he'd been considering for weeks, a chance to connect with others who might understand his journey. As he settled into a chair, clutching a latte and trying to quell his nerves, James caught his reflection in the window. The person staring back was neither fully the James that Melanie knew, nor entirely the woman from that fateful night. Instead, he saw someone in between, someone real, complex, and finally starting to feel whole. The group leader's warm welcome snapped James back to the present. As introductions began, he took a deep breath. "Hi," he said, his voice steady. "My name is James, though sometimes I go by Jamie, and I'm here to learn how to be true to all parts of myself." The words hung in the air for a moment before supportive smiles and nods surrounded him. In that instant, James felt a weight lift. This wasn't the end of his journey, but it was a crucial step. Whatever challenges lay ahead, telling Melanie, navigating the world as his authentic self, he knew he wouldn't have to face them alone. As the meeting progressed, James found himself opening up more than he ever had before. He shared the story of the accident, the fear and eventual empowerment it brought. He talked about his loving relationship with Melanie and the guilt he felt keeping this part of himself hidden. Each word spoken felt like a small act of liberation. The other group members listened with empathy, offering their own stories and advice. Some had partners who fully accepted them, others had faced rejection and rebuilt their lives. Their experiences ran the gamut, but the common thread was resilience and the pursuit of authenticity. As the meeting wound down, James exchanged numbers with a few of the attendees. The sense of community he'd been missing for so long was finally within reach. He left the coffee shop feeling lighter, more grounded in himself than he had in years. On the drive home, James found himself at a familiar crossroads. The turn to the left would take him back to the house he shared with Melanie, back to the life where he carefully compartmentalized his true self. The right turn led to the bar where his journey of self-discovery had taken such an unexpected turn months ago. For a moment, he hesitated. The pull of the familiar, of safety, was strong. But so was the desire to fully embrace this part of himself, to build on the confidence he'd found in the support group. With a deep breath, James signaled and turned right. He wasn't going to the bar, not tonight. Instead, he headed to a small park nearby. Finding a quiet bench, he pulled out his phone and pulled up Melanie's number. His finger hovered over the call button as a whirlwind of emotions swept through him. Fear, love, hope, anxiety, all warred for dominance. But underneath it all was a sense of certainty. It was time. "Hey, love," Melanie's voice came through, warm and familiar. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," James replied, his voice slightly shaky.
"Everything's fine. I need to talk to you about something important. When you get back from your trip, I mean..."
There was a pause on the other end.
"James, you're worrying me a little. Are you sure you're all right?"
He closed his eyes, picturing her concerned face. "I'm okay, I promise. It's just, there's a part of me I've never shared with you, a big part, and I think it's time you knew." Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my other socials if you want more wonderful content, early access, behind the scenes, and more. All links down below.